CJ was like, at this point, I was working Protein Station, and I just want to give a shout out to one of my boys, Kaleo, who used to work for Ron Siegel at the Ritz. He was a line cook there, went on to do great things. But Kaleo and I were really, really a driving force there, and CJ saw a lot in the both of us.
Yeah.
And basically, CJ was just like, listen, Omri, either stay with me, and I'll show you butchery, sauce work, all this sort of stuff, or go to school. Like, do something. You need to take your cooking career somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it was really then I said to myself, do I really want to take this step forward? So I did. My dad actually passed in 1999. So around this time that I was making the decision, my dad had basically flown with me. We went to Morocco. It was kind of his last trip. It was unbeknownst to me that he was sick. He kind of hid it from us.
Yeah.
Came back, stopped at the CIA. Checked out the CIA, and I thought, okay, is this where I really want to like go build my fundamentals? Is this the move I want to make? Came back, really thought about it, and the driving force of why I went to the Culinary Institute of America was really more so to experience something abroad. I've been in California my entire life, growing up. I've been cooking in California at this point for about 4 years. I've been in and out of like 3 or 4 restaurants at this point. And so it was time for me to like start hunkering down and taking cooking seriously.
Gotcha.
So I enrolled, got in. This was like 2001. And I went through the AOS program there, graduated, stayed on for a fellowship, worked in one of the restaurants as the, sous chef or teacher's assistant.
Chef of the day.
Yeah, something like that. Which was a great experience too. I had fun. I got paid to do it, so it was whatever. One of our instructors there, Chef Leroux, who ran Escoffier, the French restaurant, had a connection to France. Kind of put it out there to some of the students that he thought would be willing to do that. Mm-hmm. Myself and my good friend John Cahill, we were like, yeah, man, we've been in culinary school for 2 years. It's been, force-fed French. Why is French cuisine the basis of everything?
Yeah.
So let's go there. So he basically connected us. Originally, we were supposed to go to Roger Verger.
Gotcha.
But literally upon trying to get out there, he closed. He retired.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we basically had to like switch gears. Chef Leroux had another contact, Monsieur Bouvier, Jean-Michel Bouvier, who had a 2 Michelin in Chambéry. Mm-hmm. And that was my first, we went out there and that was my first exposure to Michelin cuisine. It was in the sticks. We were in the middle of nowhere of Haute-Savoie, so like very, very southeast, foot of the Alps kind of place. Super cold. Yeah. Lots of snow. And it was the first time I'd seen like a kitchen brigade. It was the first time I'd seen like, one person is focusing on one item and cooking that thing all night long. Like one person was on foie, one person was on pasta. You got one person garnishing plates. You got one person saucing, so on and so forth. There's sous chefs and CDCs and executive chefs and all that stuff. I'd never seen that. Yeah. I've been working in quote unquote mom and pop places.
Yeah, 4-man lines.
Yeah, in the Bay Area. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like on Dean, with it being tasting menus and kind of more of an elevated restaurant, it was still like Chef CJ. There was 2 sous chefs and that's it. You know, and then there was like 4 of us on the line, and we did our prep. This is another thing too. Like up until I was about 25, 26, after I came back from Europe, like at Ondine and all those restaurants I worked at from 16 to like 20, I was doing my own prep A to Z. There was no labor laws. There was no like you came in and you prepped your station A to Z. There was no like come in at 3 because we got to watch labor. No. Like it was
like you better get here and what you got to do and you know how fast you move. So
exactly
make it happen.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, the restaurant was called L'Essential. Jean-Michel Bouvier was the executive chef.
Gotcha.
And it was my first real exposure to that level of cuisine. We had 3 tasting menus there, a 6, 9, and a 22.
Jesus. What were the prices?
Back then, I remember the 6 course was abnormally low. It was like, I think like $48, like American dollars, but the 22 was up there. It was close to like $250.
Got you.
It was a dramatic range because there was no a la carte.
Okay.
So I think like on average we were seeing like that 6 course go out. You get an average little couple of 9s, couple of 22s if people wanted to ball out. It was a very hunter-esque type of restaurant. Wood, fire, like Jean-Michel Bouvier loved to hunt and stuff like that. Our plates were like mostly like plated on woods and like, cross-cut pieces of blocks and things like that. So it was really interesting to see that and be exposed to that. Then went on to work up north in Strasbourg at Bruchheisel with Anton Westerman for a stint, and then on to Belgium for about 9 months. We worked in a 1 Michelin Italian restaurant in Belgium.
Okay.
And not only in Belgium, but in a small town called Namur, which is on the border of France and Belgium. So there's like Flemish, there's the Flemish is the Belgium, it's like the French, German, whatever. This was very like predominantly French town, and here we are working at, I believe it's called Nero Bianchi, black and white.
Yeah.
And the chef, Hugh, he was a native Belgian, 6'5", white, just burly dude, but he had spent about 13 to 14 years working in Rome and Venice in like 3-mish restaurants, and then wanted to come back and be the hometown boy bringing Italian cuisine.
And who's going to tell him no? Fucking 6'5", like you don't tell him no.
He was the funniest thing is you look at him, you're like, oh shit. And in the kitchen, he was amazing. He was a giant teddy bear. He was amazing. And I'll tell you, all the exposure and all the cooking I had been doing up to then, I had never seen this. So we had a sheeter on the line. Very, very small kitchen. It was a 2-story restaurant. The dining room was downstairs. We had the dumbwaiter. The food went down to dumbwaiter. Or sometimes the servers would come upstairs, depending on the whatever. But we had a sheeter on the line, and he was so particular about his pastas and so about all minute cooking that literally, and we were open for lunch and dinner like 4 days a week, I think it was. We would do like 40 for lunch and maybe 40 for dinner, right? Prices were a little bit more pricey there. Not super expensive, but enough to at least keep the restaurant afloat, I think, at that time. But if you were the last table in that restaurant, he was literally making your pasta to order.
Yeah.
And I had never, I'm sure there's restaurants now that are prevalent and they can do it, but that was my first time as I was like 22, 23 years old, and I'm like, holy crap, you're like, order would come in and say it's like a corn ravioli. Here he is with the filling on the sheeter,
making the ravioli
boom,
fresh,
boom, 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 and dropping it in the water.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, man, and like it was the first time I'd seen, like, I had 3 risottos on my station, and I literally had the stocks, the rice, aromatics, everything, and I'm making risotto. Like, it's like they tell the table 20 minutes if you want risotto, it's 20 minutes for cook. And I'm here making, hen risotto, like all these different risottos. That was the first time I ever seen
Stirring 2
that.
pots at once.
Exactly. Got shit on multiple things going
Putting
on.
The wrong stock in the one, and you're like, I hope this doesn't taste like veal now. Let me check on this car real quick.
Yeah.
We're good.
So that takes me about 2002 or 3. I'm about 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
And now I come back to the States. And I was out in Europe with my good friend John. Again, we kind of went out there together and experienced this whole thing together.
Yeah.
And while we were out there, we traveled to Spain, we traveled to Italy. We got to see a bunch of cultural things. I'll tell you this, in retrospect, going out there to really find out why French cuisine reigns supreme, didn't really get the answer. Kind of came to find out that we do the same thing here in the United States.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
People are cooking on that level. Like the French,
Yeah.
you guys aren't doing it better than us. Like, yeah, you can toot your horn. You've won Bocuse d'Or how many times, and you guys are cooking's in your blood and whatever. But there are plenty of restaurants in the United States where cooking at that intensity and cooking at that level. So I just chalked it up to a whole cultural, my whole experience out there. I was continuing my training as a cook and and being exposed to all these things. Like I said, it's my first time seeing Michelin style cooking. I chalk it up to just really being immersed in another culture and seeing what that's like. I've never we had siesta.
Yep.
Going thinking anything is open on Sunday, forget about it. Trying to do your laundry on that Sunday,
the one day off.
Trying to find something to eat, and it's I remember calling my mom the first week I was out there. I'm like, Mom, dude, nothing is open on Sunday. What? She's like, welcome to Europe. That's how it used to be in the States back in the 50s and 60s, my friends.
That's how we roll.
we it's a different era now. Americans, what is it? Americans work to live and not live to work, I think is the saying. Where in Europe it's much, much different. But I came back from Europe, and this is when I said to myself, I need to slow down, I need to stop, and I need to find somebody who's going to take me to the next step and really mentor me and show me.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to preface you right now, I might get emotional, because every time I talk about this, it's very tough. But I landed in D.C. And I worked at a restaurant called Citronelle. I worked for Michel Richard. Michel Richard was not only impactful in my cooking career, but in my life. It started off very funny. I walk into Citronelle, I interview for the job, get the job, start as a line cook there, started in Garde Manger. Had all this experience. I was working on these lines in Michelin restaurants in Europe, and the chef was like, nope, you're going to start in Garde Manger and we'll see where you're at. I walk in there, and the only coat I got is my CIA. At this point, I just got my CIA coat, which has my name on it. Yeah, my name on it, right? It's what I've been using in Europe.
That doesn't fly.
I walk in there, and Michel was a big stickler about, you come in, you say hello to everybody.
Yes.
You shake everybody's hand in the
100%.
kitchen.
Yep.
You don't walk in there and just start ignoring and going to work. You shake the chef's hand, you shake the sous chef's hand, you shake the prep cooks, everybody, right? So I come in there, I shake Michel's hand, and he grabs me in, and he's looking at my coat, and he's like, Aflalo. He's like, impossible, you're at Aflalo. And I'm like, what are you talking? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He's like, no, I know the Aflalos. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Next day I come in there, and he's like, who's your father? Who's your dad? And I'm like, my dad's Rafael Aflalo. And he's like, no way, your father is Rafael Aflalo. And I'm like, Michel, what is the deal?
I'm not lying to you about who's my dad.
What is your deal? And he's like, I know Rafael Aflalo, and this man helped me start my career. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you're crazy. Backstory to this whole thing. So my dad was a huge loan. He worked for a bank called Mitsui Manufacturer Bank in LA.
Gotcha.
And he gave loans to celebrities, big companies, businesses, whatever. Michel opened his first pastry shop called Michel Richard Pastry on Cannon Drive in Beverly Hills. My dad gave him the loan to open that pastry shop, and then helped him to open up Citrus, which ended up being his namesake in LA.
Yes.
My dad was French. Like I said, my dad spoke French, Italian, Spanish, whatever, straight off the boat from Morocco. Michel and my dad hit it off, and my dad was literally at Citrus, bringing clients, bringing guests, all this stuff, and really, really supported Michel. They had the French connection going on, this whole thing, and my dad was a pretty integral part of Michel's life in LA.
Right.
So when I walk in this kitchen, and Michel's like, he sees my name, he's like, there's no way that you're this guy's son. And so a week later, I finally called my mom. I was like, Mom, I don't have a picture of my dad. I'm like, send me a picture of my father. She sends it to me, I get it, and I go, and I was like, Michel, look,
is
that him? This is me and my dad. And he's like, holy shit. He's like, I can't believe this. And that's how our relationship started. You know what I mean? Michel literally was like, this kid is something, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't just another cook in his kitchen, whatever.
Right.
He really, really kind of embraced the fact of my family. And the funny thing, too, is in retrospect, our guy that did all of our plates, that supplied us with Bernardo and all that sort of stuff, was my cousin. It was one of my cousins.
Got you.
And I'm like, another Aflalo. And he was like, oh my God. He's like, I got this whole Aflalo connection going on here in D.C. But anyway, point being is I spent almost 10 years with Michel at Citronelle. Okay. I started in Garde Manger, working my way up all the way to basically opening restaurants with Michel. I was while at Citronelle, I was part of the opening team, which opened Central, his bistro over on 10th in Pennsylvania.